Hello and welcome. How politically stable is Turkey as it tries to balance religion, secularism and progress in the face of rising tensions? That balancing act has been part of Turkish society for almost a century. But a recent confrontation between the military and the government is raising serious concerns that things might change. Kemal Atatürk founded the republic in 1923 as a strictly secular state, with the country's military acting as the ultimate guardian of that secularism and overthrowing those who threatened those founding ideals. With the election of Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan's Justice and Development Party, the AKP, tensions have steadily grown, with the advocates of secularism accusing the government of moving the country away from its core principles. Earlier this week, Turkey's military and government came head-to-head when 49 military officials were arrested in relation to the 2003 so-called sledgehammer plot to overthrow the government. The arrest came as Prime Minister Erdogan announced plans to reform the judiciary, which he says has become increasingly politicized. Critics say the Prime Minister is simply trying to remove all his political opponents at once. On today's show, we ask, how will Turkey handle this latest crisis, and what shape will the Republic take as it moves forward? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or an email, and we'll also welcome your phone calls into the show. Well, joining me now from Istanbul is retired Brigadier General Haldun Solmazturk, who served as the Turkish Army's General Staff up till 2005. General Solmazturk holds a PhD in political science from Istanbul's Bilgi University and is currently a senior fellow at the Strategic Research Center of the Retired Officers Association of Turkey. General, very honored to have you on the show, and I have to start by asking about this 3-hour session, the 3-hour meeting that President Gül mediated with the Prime Minister and also General Basbuk. And the President announced after that all the relevant issues were covered. Everything would be resolved according to the Constitution. How confident are you that things are stabilizing now?
No, I'm not that confident. I mean, this crisis were looming for such a long time. I don't think a single meeting, even if it's 3 hours long, could solve this problem. There's a deep suspicion, distrust between some state institutions. It's not restricted to army only. It's not a crisis between army and the government. Mm-hmm. It's not a crisis between government and the opposition only. I mean, it's a general crisis. I can easily, confidently call it a regime crisis.
Well, let me ask you, General, you know, it's always been a tense relationship between the government and the military, of course, with the military being seen traditionally as the guardians of Turkey's secularism. But I wonder if this is an indication that perhaps that role of the military, of being the guardians of secularism, is actually being weakened, that it's noticed that times are changing.
Oh, absolutely, you're right. I mean, the times are changing, has already changed, and the army has already sidelined. It has forced to leave the political scene as a power center. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think this is the problem Turkey is facing now. The real problem is much bigger, much larger. Army is pacified. There's no doubt about that. But now it's beyond that. Army is being humiliated. That's how it is perceived by quite a large number of people in Turkey, and of course by many army members.
So how do you regard the outcome of that meeting of the country's top generals earlier this week, when there was a lot of concern about the situation? Apparently the generals even discussed a mass resignation. What do you make of this sort of very vocal approach to what's been happening, and the generals speaking up like this, and the threat of the resignation? Could it happen?
First of all, these are all rumors, unconfirmed rumors. I don't think it will ever happen, but it cannot be ruled out. It's possible, because within the rules of democracy, as it is understood universally, I mean, that's the ultimate action the army command could take, I believe. It cannot be ruled out, but I don't think if it will ever happen, it will happen tomorrow.
Now, I wonder, it's interesting, General, you said that this is not just concerning the government and the military, this involves other institutions as well. And of course, one of the things that has come up is, as part of the EU membership process, the government has said that it wants to create judicial reforms and wants to move forward on those reforms immediately. And our opponents, of course, are saying this is one of the ways for the government to get rid of the safety checks that can limit the government's power. How much of a threat do you think it is to democracy in Turkey, and how much can it leave the government with sort of unleashed power or unlimited power?
I believe this is the major problem. I mean, this is the real threat, and it's real. It's there because currently the government is in governance, and the parliament is controlled by the government, and the president, obviously he's from the governing party, and the media is under huge political stress, political suppression through various means. So traditionally, army has been a power center, along with the judiciary. And now, as the army, practically, effectively sidelined, pacified, and now it's only the judiciary. So if somehow the constitution is amended to let the governing party assign, members in the, let's say, the constitutional court, high administrative court, appeals court, etc., then there will be no institution left at all to check the government, and I guess that's a real threat for any democracy.
Now, sir, of course, it seems the momentum is with the AKP now, and it seems that Prime Minister Erdogan is successful at pushing through pretty much what he wants to, any kind of reforms or any kind of issues he wants to bring on the agenda. How has he been able to get this level of power, if you like, and what do you feel it's doing in terms of really challenging the chance for democratic rule in Turkey?
The traditional lack, or the traditional sickness of the Turkish political system is the lack of opposition. I mean, so-called loyal opposition, loyal to the rules of the democratic regime. So this is encouraged not only by the constitution, but mainly the election law and the law for the political parties. Also, the part of this problem is the huge extraordinary election threshold, which is 10% in Turkey. I mean, there is no other country throughout the world, neither today nor in the history, who introduced such a high threshold. So all these flows in the Turkish political system just offer this opportunity to the governing party, and obviously they are making best use of this opportunity.
General, let me put a couple of questions we had from our viewers to you, sir, if I could, because we get people wanting to participate from around the world. And we had one question, if I could, that came in from Saudi Arabia. And Sayed Zaki Ahmed wrote in saying, the military and elites resistant to AKP's modest softening of Turkey's secularism is not the only source of distrust. The metropolitan Kemalist establishment also feels threatened by the emerging conservative middle class. Would you care to comment on that?
Yes, that's the picture offered or drawn by many, both within and outside Turkey. I mean, currently there are several officers in jail, not only detained but arrested, and there are 4-star generals retired and active, still under custody. Some already arrested, based on an alleged coup attempt. I mean, for example, you mentioned it, at the beginning when you started the program. Sledgehammer, coup plot, coup plan. I mean, there is no such a plan. I mean, the retired 4-star who was alleged to to order the preparation of this plan and who signed for it, plainly rejected. And also the Turkish General Staff said that there has never been such a plan prepared within the army or by any army unit. So, I mean, based on a fake plan and based on some fake allegations, fabricated allegations, several officers, including 4 stars, have been detained, arrested, and some of them have been in jail for about 2 years now. So I don't think it would be fair to say that army is still strong and resisting or trying to maintain some privilege at all. There is no such a privilege at all if it ever happened in the past.
General, I'll touch more on that alleged coup as well in a moment, but let me put 2 more questions, if I may, back to you that came from viewers. One says, it's from Alfeo Musa, who wrote into our Facebook page saying the Turkish military has to accept a new era of politics that has begun in Turkey and thus should embrace democracy. And the other one from Abdullahi Al-Akbar in the UK says, what could happen if the conflict between the army and the AK party escalates?
The first question, actually it's a suggestion. I agree with completely. Of course, in any democracy, army should relegate, army should accept the position of any other army. I mean, army should withdraw from the political scene. But the problem is that army has already withdrawn from the political scene, but still attacked. So what was the second one?
The second was just what would happen if the conflict between the army and AKP escalates?
Oh yes, the conflict is not between the army and the government. The conflict is between 2 cultures. You will recall, and your viewers, Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations scheme or suggestion or theory. Actually, it's clash of cultures within different civilizations, within individual countries. So that's what we are experiencing in Turkey. It's clash of two cultures, and these 2 cultures, different cultures, are represented not uniquely in the army or in the government or in the judiciary. It's mixed. Both cultures are represented in any institutions. So it's not between institutions. It's between groups and individuals within different institutions. So I don't think it's between the government and the judiciary. For example, the army, judiciary is in it.
Well, General, I'm going to ask you to stand by because we're going to take a short break here. We're back with more of our discussion in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're examining the political crisis in Turkey following the arrest of close to 50 military officials earlier this week. From Istanbul, we've been talking with retired Brigadier General Haldun Solmazturk, who served on the Turkish Army's General Staff up until 2005. Also joining us now is Hasan Bülent Karaman, an assistant professor at the Sabancı University, where he focuses on Turkish social thought. He also writes a regular column for Turkey's Sabah newspaper. And as we get back in, Hasan, let me welcome you in. Let me ask you to touch on this issue of the arrest of the generals, the current situation in Turkey. The general who's been with us, of course, has been saying that this is not just an issue of the government and the military, it's something much deeper than this. Let me get your perspective on that.
I'm very happy to hear that an ex-general is speaking about the more deeper roots of the problem in Turkey. I completely believe that it's not a matter of judiciary and its clash with the army. There is, of course, a clash between the judiciary and the army, and there are so many allegedly plotting to topple the JDP, the AK Party government in Turkey, and due to that, of course, there has been so many arrests, and to the best of my knowledge, 15 out of the 20 arrested officers are in active duty in Turkey, and in that context, yes, there is a overt problem in Turkey, very open, very visible, apparent in Turkey. However, I believe there are deeper roots for that, and it's not a matter of the, the duped sledgehammer matter or the cage matter. Other than that, I believe it's a constitutional problem in the context that in Turkey, even though it is said that the constitutions is based on the separation of powers, the separation of the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive, it is not correct. There is a kind of supremacy of the judiciary, judiciary bureaucracy over the executive.
Let me ask you then, Hassan, to what extent is this, as some people see it, an effort by the AKP, the AK party, the AK party, to basically eliminate its opponents, to take over control, to replace some of those in the judiciary who are favorable to it rather than being more secularist? Is this sort of marking the end of secularism in Turkey?
No, it is not. I believe it's the other way around. I believe through all these transformations, Turkey will continue with a better understanding of secularism. It has been based on the French model. That means it's not the, it is of course the separation of the church. That means the, let's say, the religious and the state affairs. However, it is more a religious controlled by the government or by the state in Turkey. And that's the extent of the secularism in Turkey. Now, due to the so many events that happened in the world in the post-1989 period, Turkey is passing to a more civilian understanding of secularism, to a more civilian understanding of constitution. This is a matter of the clash between a more authoritarian regime and a regime based on the civilian forces. So in that context, again, I believe there will be a better understanding of secularism.
I want to get General Solmaz back in a moment. Let me get a viewer question here. Ali in Canada has been waiting very patiently. Ali, thank you. What would you like to add to the conversation, please?
Okay, I just wanted to add one thing in the conversation. What I've been seeing lately is any country like Muslim countries, when they move close to Islamic side, or they're more pro-Islam, or they're probably Western countries don't like them, there was always uprising, there's always somebody who want to overthrow the government. But countries like Egypt, who are pro-Western countries and oppressing their people, I've never had even one day anybody going up and want to overthrow the government. So is that the same thing happening in Turkey now? Because I think Turkey is
actually, Ali, you raise a relevant, an interesting question I want to put to General Solmaz. General, the issue of fear, certainly in the West, of an Islamist agenda, to what degree do you think that's determining the way Turkey is being regarded outside? For example, when it comes to the European Union, how is it affecting Turkey's relationship with America, for example? Is there a genuine fear that there's going to be a strong move towards being a much more conservative Islamic state?
First of all, about Egypt, I would hesitate to call Egypt as a democracy. I mean, despite all flaws, I mean, there is a democratic system working at the moment in Turkey. Regarding the threats to Turkish democracy, I believe, I mean, the Turkish army's record in terms of promoting democratic values in Turkey is not something to be proud of. I mean, there is no doubt about that. But now many people are making the same mistake Turkish army has done for decades, which is reducing democracy into secularism. So, I mean, a country may be a secular country like Saddam's Iraq in the past, but it may be an autocratic country. So we should focus on democracy as it is understood, as it is perceived universally. It's about rule of law, it's about primacy of law, it's about accountability, it's about civic culture, it's about free media, it's about freedoms. It's about guaranteeing basic freedoms of its citizens. These are under threat in Turkey now. That's the main reason of the crisis, as it is perceived by millions of people, including myself.
So thank you. I'm going to ask Hassan Bulent Karaman here to comment on that perspective that you've given there, sir. And also, Hassan, it seems the Turkish public are divided between those who want to take one path one way, which is following the AK Party's line, and the others who want the sort of the older Turkey to return. What's your view?
My view is this. I completely agree with the general that democracy is not merely based on, it should not be merely based on the problem of the secularism. And again, I would repeat my point. For the last 40 years, Turkish army did this mistake and coined the concept of democracy with secularism, and always saying that secularism is under threat. In Turkey, they performed all these military coups. And once again, in Turkey, now, even the society is divided on this ground, saying that secularism as well as the other democratic possibilities are under the threat of the government, which I believe, again, has been always the slogan or the motto of the previous military coups. I remember 1960, and I made an extensive research on the 1960 military coup, as well as I lived through the 1971 and 1980 military coups. There was always all these same arguments that the democratic life in Turkey is under the threat. Plus, on top of that, I would say that even though the constitutions, as I mentioned before, is based on the allegedly said the separation of the powers, no, it's not. Right. This is a kind of tutelary state, and it has in its essence, its core, an authoritarian approach to the civilian society.
Well, you know, it's a topic we're going to continue following. I want to thank you both. We are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you both for taking part in this. General, thank you as well, sir. Hassan, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for being with us too. Now, remember, you can follow the show on Facebook and view previous broadcasts you may have missed. Be sure to share your questions and comments so we can include them in the program. On the next show, the US Congress is working on a law to impose sanctions on Arab TV stations that, quote, promote anti-Americanism. The bill has sparked widespread condemnation among broadcasters who argue that America should not be cracking down on free speech. Be sure to tune in from that. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.